Continuation of the Lighthouse Keepers Secret. Chapter 2: The Lantern's Call. Ellie couldn't stay in Brackenport after what had happened at the lighthouse. The whispers in the wind, the strange patterns in the light, and the sight of her father's ghostly figure haunted her. But the journal never left her side. Its worn leather cover was a constant reminder of her promise to uncover the truth. She spent her days combing through old town records in the library, poring over faded newspaper clippings about shipwrecks and disappearances. Brackenport's history was riddled with tragedy, and the lighthouse seemed to stand at the heart of every tale. Ships that vanished on calm seas. Fishermen who claimed to hear. History was riddled with tragedy, and the lighthouse seemed to stand at the heart of every tale. Ships that vanished on calm seas. Fishermen who claimed to hear. One name came up again and again: the Halcyon. The Halcyon was a merchant ship that had disappeared off the coast of Brackenport over a century ago. Its cargo, rumored to be gold and rare artifacts, was never recovered. Some claimed it was wrecked by a storm, others whispered of darker forces. But a single entry in the town's archives caught Ellie's attention. The Halcyon was last seen near the Brackenport lighthouse. Witnesses reported an unnatural light in the sky before the ship vanished. No survivors. Unnatural light. Her father's words echoed in her mind. There's something in the light. That evening, Ellie returned to the lighthouse, armed with a lantern, the journal, and a sturdy crowbar. The air was cold and sharp with the scent of salt, and the waves below roared as if warning her to turn back. Inside, the structure felt different. The hum of the beacon seemed louder, almost alive, and the shadows seemed to twist and writhe in the corners of the room. Ellie climbed the stairs to the lantern room, her every step filled with dread. Circled the console, examining the beacon closely. It was old but functional, its mechanism clicking steadily as the light rotated. Yet something felt off. She crouched down, running her fingers along the base of the light when she felt it. A faint draft. What the? Ellie pressed her ear to the metal and knocked. Hollow. Using the crowbar, she pried open a hidden panel beneath the light. Inside was a compartment filled with strange objects. A rusted key, shards of green glass that shimmered like seawater, and a small, intricately carved wooden box. She hesitated, her fingers hovering over the box. Finally she opened it. Inside was a pocket watch, its surface engraved with a swirling pattern that seemed to ripple like waves. As she held it up to the light, the air around her shifted. The hum of the beacon grew louder, and the room was suddenly bathed in an otherworldly glow. And then the voices began. Ellie. They weren't whispers this time. They were layered, overlapping, rising and falling like the tide. She turned, and the lantern room was no longer empty. Figures stood in the light, translucent and shimmering, their faces gaunt and hollow-eyed. They were sailors, their uniforms torn and soaked, their hands reaching toward her. One stepped forward, his voice low and hollow. You've opened the gate. What gate? Ellie demanded, her voice trembling. The Halcyon's curse, the sailor rasped. The light binds us, and now it binds you. No, she cried, clutching the pocket watch. What does this have to do with my father? The sailor tilted his head. He tried to break the curse. He failed. And now you must decide. Will you join us, or will you finish what he started? Before Ellie could respond, the light flared and the figures vanished, leaving her alone in the eerie silence of the lantern room. She looked down at the pocket watch, its hands now spinning wildly, and she knew there was no turning back. Whatever bound her father and now her was tied to the Halcyon, and she would have to face the cursed ship to uncover the truth. Chapter 3: The Wreck Beneath. Ellie's next step was clear. She needed to find the wreck of the Halcyon. Armed with the journal and the strange artifacts from the lighthouse, she sought out Brackenport's most infamous fisherman, Tom Rourke. Tom was a wiry man with weathered skin and sharp eyes that seemed to see straight through you. He'd been salvaging wrecks along the coast for decades, and his knowledge of the waters was unmatched. But he also had a reputation for being eccentric. When Ellie showed him the pocket watch, his face went pale. You've seen it, haven't you? He said, his voice barely above a whisper. The light, she replied. Tom nodded grimly. I've seen it too. Lost my brother to it 20 years ago. We were out near the shoals when it appeared. He swore he heard someone calling his name, and before I could stop him he was gone. Ellie leaned forward. Do you know where the Halcyon sank? Tom hesitated, then sighed. I do. But the question is, are you ready to face what's down there? Ellie met his gaze, her determination unshaken. I don't have a choice. The next morning they set out on Tom's weathered fishing boat, the Sea Shadow. The waters were calm, but the air was thick with an oppressive weight, as if the ocean itself was holding its breath. As they approached the shoals, Tom cut the engine. This is as close as we get. The rest we dive. Ellie strapped on the diving gear, her heart pounding as she descended into the cold, dark water. The world above faded, replaced by the silence of the deep and the faint glow of her flashlight cutting through the murk. And then she saw it. The wreck of the Halcyon loomed before her, its once grand hull now twisted and broken, draped in seaweed and shadow. As she swam closer, the pocket watch in her hand began to glow, its light illuminating the ship's name etched into the wood. Ellie's breath caught. The glow wasn't just coming from the watch, it was coming from within the ship. Something was waiting for her in the depths. Thanks and subscribe.